The morning started like any other at the Global Space Defense Center in Geneva. Admiral James Wilson stood by the large window, sipping his black coffee and watching the sunrise paint the Swiss Alps in golden light. At 62 years old, with gray hair and weathered features, he had spent 4 decades protecting Earth's interests in space. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for what was about to happen. Admiral Lieutenant Peter White burst into the room, his face pale. Multiple unknown objects just appeared past Neptune's orbit. They're massive, sir. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. Wilson didn't panic. Years of training had taught him to stay calm in any situation. "Show me," he said simply, following Peter to the main control room. The massive wall screen showed dozens of red dots, each representing a ship larger than Earth's biggest space stations. They moved with precision, their formation too perfect to be natural. As Wilson watched, more ships appeared, seeming to pop into existence from nowhere. "Sir," said Mary Thompson, their chief communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Wilson nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing a humanoid figure with metallic blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow from within. The being wore an elaborate uniform, covered in symbols that looked like flowing water. "People of Earth," the figure spoke, its voice carrying an artificial smoothness. "I am Commander Marcus of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Your world has been scheduled for integration into the Empire. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. We bring civilization to primitive worlds like yours." The room fell silent. Wilson kept his face neutral, though his mind raced. "This is Admiral James Wilson of the United Earth Defense Force. What do you mean by integration?" Marcus's expression showed something close to pity. "Your species has yet to develop faster than light travel. You still use primitive radio waves for communication. The Empire will uplift you, give you proper technology, and assign you a suitable role within our civilization." Wilson's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "And if we decline this generous offer?" "Decline?" Marcus laughed, the sound oddly musical. "Admiral, you misunderstand. This is not an offer. This is a notification. We have arrived to prepare your world for integration. Your lack of quantum-based technology and reliance on fossil fuels clearly shows your primitive status. The Empire takes responsibility for developing such worlds." As the transmission continued, Wilson noticed something interesting. Despite their advanced technology, the Imperial ships maintained perfect formation using communication methods that his teams could detect. Their arrogance made them careless. "How long do we have to prepare for this integration?" Wilson asked carefully. "Your global leaders will be contacted within the hour. You have 30 Earth days to arrange an orderly transition. We are not barbarians, after all." Marcus smiled, showing teeth that gleamed like polished steel. After the transmission ended, Wilson turned to his staff. The control room had gone completely silent, everyone looking to him for direction. "Get me the president," he ordered, "and connect me to every major military and scientific institution on Earth. Peter, I want detailed scans of those ships. Mary, monitor every transmission between their fleet, no matter how small. And someone get Dr. Roberts from the Quantum Physics Division up here immediately." As his team rushed to follow orders, Wilson turned back to the screen showing the Imperial fleet. They were so perfectly arranged, so confident in their superiority. They had revealed more in this brief conversation than they realized. The Empire thought Earth was primitive because humans still used radio waves and hadn't developed faster than light travel. But Wilson knew something they didn't. Humanity's primitive technology was the result of thousands of years of warfare and innovation. Every piece of equipment, every method of communication had been tested and refined through countless conflicts. Looking at his reflection in the window, Wilson allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had made the classic mistake of assuming technological advancement meant the same thing as superiority. They were about to learn that humans had spent their entire history finding ways to defeat superior forces. The next 30 days would determine Earth's future, but for the first time since the ships appeared, Wilson felt a spark of hope. After all, humanity had one advantage the Empire clearly lacked. They knew what it was like to be the underdog. 3 days after first contact, the United Nations building in New York buzzed with activity. Leaders from every nation sat together in the emergency council chamber, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of a common threat. Admiral Wilson stood at the podium, his presentation drawing to a close. The Imperial fleet has repositioned itself between Earth and Mars. Their commander Marcus will address us in 5 minutes. The room's massive screen flickered to life, showing the now familiar blue face of Commander Marcus. His metallic eyes swept across the assembled human leaders with barely hidden disgust. Primitive species usually need time to understand their place in the Empire, Marcus began. So let me be clear about your choices. First option, accept Imperial rule peacefully. Your people will be given basic Imperial technology and assigned suitable work within the Empire. Second option. He paused, his smile turning cold. Well, let's just say the Empire has dealt with primitive rebellions before. President Garcia of the World Council stood up. We request time to discuss these terms with our people. You have 30 days, Marcus replied. Use them wisely. The screen went dark. As the leaders began arguing among themselves, Dr. Anna Roberts slipped into the room and headed straight for Admiral Wilson. Her gray lab coat was wrinkled, and her eyes showed signs of 3 sleepless nights, but there was excitement in her voice. Admiral, we found something, she whispered. They're not as advanced as they want us to believe. Wilson led her to a private room, where Dr. Roberts spread out her data tablets. Look at these energy readings from their ships, she pointed. Their entire technology depends on quantum-based shields. But here's the interesting part. They completely ignored old frequencies we stopped using 50 years ago. They don't even monitor them. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying they're like someone who builds a fancy digital lock, but forgets about the simple back door, she grinned. Their quantum shields are amazing against modern weapons, but they have no defense against older, simpler technology. They thought our primitive methods weren't worth protecting against. Wilson's eyes widened as he understood. Can we use this? Better than that, Dr. Roberts said. We can combine our old technology with what we've learned from studying their ships. They won't expect it because they think we're too primitive to do anything creative with their technology. Wilson spent the next hour calling military bases worldwide. Soon, old radio telescopes were being secretly modified into weapons. Retired military equipment was pulled out of storage. Scientists worldwide began working on combining Earth's primitive technology with what they'd learned about imperial systems. Meanwhile, in public, Earth's leaders put on a great show. They asked basic questions about imperial life, requested tours of imperial ships, and acted appropriately impressed by imperial technology. Commander Marcus grew more relaxed with each passing day, convinced that these primitive humans were accepting their fate. On the 20th day, Wilson received an unexpected visitor. A junior Imperial officer named Trin requested a private meeting. Not all of us agree with the Empire's methods, Trin said nervously. Some of us have studied your history. Your people achieved spaceflight in just a few centuries after discovering electricity. That's unprecedented. Why are you telling me this? Wilson asked carefully. Because the Empire has grown lazy, Trin replied. They rely too much on their advanced technology. They'd forgotten how to think creatively. But your people, he glanced around before continuing. Your people built pyramids without machines. You crossed oceans in wooden boats. You reached your moon using computers less powerful than our food processors. That's why some of us are worried. Wilson kept his face neutral, but inside his mind was racing. The Empire's overconfidence wasn't just an advantage. It was a weapon they could use. As Trin left, Wilson contacted Dr. Roberts. How soon can we be ready? Give me 5 more days, she replied. The Empire won't know what hit them. Wilson looked out his window at the Imperial ships hanging in the sky like artificial stars. Soon they would learn an important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the best technology, but the one with nothing to lose and everything to prove. The Empire had given Earth 30 days to surrender. Instead, they had given humanity time to prepare. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Thomas watched as civilians learned to fight. The underground base, once a Cold War relic, now buzzed with activity. Men and women from all walks of life. Teachers, farmers, office workers, trained with both old and new weapons. Remember, Thomas called out to the group, "The Empire expects us to use fancy weapons. That's why we're going back to basics." He picked up an old rifle. Sometimes the simplest tools work best. The past 25 days had changed everything. Factories that once made cars now produced weapons. Computer companies created electronic jammers. Even toy manufacturers helped, their plastic molding machines now making parts for simple but effective devices. In her lab in Geneva, Dr. Roberts hadn't slept properly in weeks. Empty coffee cups littered her desk as she studied the data from their latest test. Her team had successfully combined an old radio telescope with parts copied from Imperial technology. "Look at this," she told Admiral Wilson, who had come to check their progress. She pointed to a small device on her desk. "It looks like a simple radio, right? But inside, it's half Earth technology, half Imperial design. Their ships won't know how to defend against it because it shouldn't exist in their minds." Wilson picked up the device carefully. "Will it work?" "We tested it yesterday," Dr. Roberts smiled. "Their quantum shields can't stop our old radio waves when we add their own technology to the mix." She played a video showing a small test shield failing completely. "It's like trying to stop a bullet with a net designed to catch missiles." Across the world, similar preparations continued. In abandoned mines, people built mechanical weapons that needed no electronics. On farms, tractors were modified into mobile weapon platforms. Old military bases reopened, their outdated equipment now more valuable than ever. The Empire watched all this but saw only what they expected to see. Their scans looked for advanced technology, for quantum signatures and energy weapons. They didn't notice the simpler preparations happening right under their noses. Commander Marcus made daily reports to the Imperial Council. The humans continue to accept their inevitable integration. They show appropriate awe at our technology and ask basic questions about their future roles. Some have even requested early admission to Imperial education programs. But he didn't see what happened in places like the old steel mill in Pittsburgh. There, workers melted down old cars to make simple but effective weapons. Or in the Australian outback, where Aboriginals taught soldiers how to fight without relying on technology. Or in the Amazon rainforest, where indigenous guides helped hide equipment under the thick canopy. 3 days before the deadline, Wilson called a secret meeting with all Earth's military leaders. They gathered in an old bunker deep underground, safe from Imperial scans. "Everything is ready," Wilson said, looking at the assembled group. "Our people know what to do. The Empire thinks we're preparing for surrender, but we're ready for war." "What about civilian casualties?" someone asked. "Every major city has underground shelters," Thomas answered. "We've spent these weeks preparing not just to fight, but to protect our people. The Empire won't expect that. They think we're too primitive to plan ahead." Dr. Roberts stepped forward with her latest report. "Their overconfidence is their weakness. They've positioned their ships perfectly to control Earth, but those positions also make them vulnerable to our hybrid weapons." Wilson looked at the map showing Imperial ship positions. "They think they're dealing with simple primitives who will be grateful for Imperial technology. Instead, they're about to face an entire planet of humans who have spent their whole history learning to fight against stronger enemies." As the meeting ended, Wilson received one last report. The Empire had begun preparing for the official surrender ceremony. They had even started building their first Imperial government center in what used to be Central Park. "Let them build," Wilson said quietly. Let them think we've given up. In 3 days, they'll learn why humans have survived every disaster nature has thrown at us. We don't give up. We adapt. The countdown to humanity's greatest battle continued, but for the first time in a month, Earth's defenders felt ready. They had spent 30 days preparing not just weapons, but hope. The Mars colony looked empty and defenseless. Its domed structures stood silent under the red sky as Imperial ships moved into attack position. Commander Marcus watched from his flagship, a satisfied smile on his metallic blue face. "Send the warning shot," he ordered. "Show these primitives what happens when they delay too long." The deadline had passed 2 hours ago, and Earth's leaders were still discussing final terms. 5 Imperial warships moved forward, their quantum weapons charging. On his command screen, Marcus could see the 300 human colonists inside the Mars base, scrambling in panic. Fire. The quantum beams lanced out, striking the colony's main dome. But instead of the expected explosion, something strange happened. The entire colony flickered like a bad video image, then disappeared completely. What? Marcus stood up from his command chair, scanned the surface. Before his crew could respond, a massive burst of electromagnetic energy erupted from where the colony had been. Old-style radio waves, combined with modified Imperial technology, slammed into the 5 warships. Their quantum shields, designed to stop advanced energy weapons, did nothing against this primitive yet advanced hybrid attack. All 5 ships lost power immediately. They hung in Mars orbit, dead in space. Back on Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral Wilson watched the success of their first trap. "Send in the recovery teams," he ordered. Small Earth ships, built with minimal technology, approached the disabled Imperial vessels. These ships had been considered too primitive to be a threat, so the Empire hadn't even bothered tracking them. Dr. Roberts stood beside Wilson, monitoring the energy readings. "The hologram of the colony worked perfectly," she said, "and their shields had no defense against our hybrid EMP weapons." "What about the real Mars colonists?" Wilson asked. "Safely evacuated 2 weeks ago," Thomas replied from his station. "The Empire was so busy scanning for quantum signatures, they didn't notice us using old-style chemical rockets to bring everyone home." Inside the disabled Imperial ships, the crews were stunned. Their mighty quantum technology had been defeated by what they considered primitive weapons. As Earth's recovery teams boarded the ships, they found most Imperial crews ready to surrender without a fight. Within 3 hours, humanity had captured 5 advanced Imperial warships completely intact. Commander Marcus watched in growing horror from his flagship. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're primitives. They can't." His words were cut short as his communications officer shouted, "Multiple energy signatures detected. They're appearing everywhere." Across the solar system, humanity revealed its true preparation. Old radio telescopes, modified with Imperial technology, powered up. Simple rockets carried hybrid EMP devices. Mechanical weapons, too basic for Imperial scanners to detect, launched their attacks. The Imperial fleet found itself under attack from weapons they couldn't understand, a mix of primitive and advanced technology that their quantum shields weren't designed to stop. They hid all this from us. Marcus raged as more of his ships lost power. How did we not see it? The answer came from his own junior officer, Trin, who spoke quietly from his post. "We saw what we expected to see, Commander. We looked for advanced weapons and ignored everything else. They used our own arrogance against us." On Earth, Wilson gave the order to begin Phase 2. The captured Imperial ships, quickly modified by Dr. Roberts' team, powered up under human control. Their quantum weapons had been combined with Earth's primitive guidance systems, creating hybrid weapons that the Imperial shields had no defense against. "Send the message," Wilson ordered. On every Imperial ship, screens flickered to life, showing Wilson's face. "Commander Marcus, you gave us 30 days to surrender. Instead, we used that time to learn. You thought we were primitive, Because we still used simple technology. Now you'll learn why humans keep our old tools even as we develop new ones. In Mars orbit, the disabled Imperial ships hung silently as Earth's recovery teams worked. Humanity's first real battle against the Galactic Empire had lasted less than 4 hours, and they won without losing a single life. The real war was just beginning, but Earth had shown that humanity would not be such easy prey after all. In the captured Imperial flagship's engine room, Dr. Roberts worked with a team of engineers. The ship's quantum core hummed with power, its blue light reflecting off their faces. What had taken the Empire centuries to develop, humans were learning to modify in days. It's like they never thought anyone would try to change their designs, she said, connecting an old Earth radio to the quantum systems. They built everything to be perfect, but not flexible. Admiral Wilson entered the engine room, looking at the modified systems with approval. In the week since their first victory, humans had captured 15 more Imperial ships. Each one taught them more about Imperial technology. "How soon can we move?" he asked. "The first 5 ships are ready," Dr. Roberts replied. "We've replaced their rigid control systems with our hybrid ones. They're not as elegant as the original Imperial systems, but they're much more adaptable." The Empire was learning this lesson the hard way. Their remaining ships, now pulled back to Jupiter's orbit, found themselves facing an enemy that kept changing tactics. Sometimes Earth ships attacked with pure Imperial technology. Sometimes they used simple weapons. Most often, they used unpredictable combinations of both. In his new command ship, Commander Marcus watched another battle group fall to human attacks. "How are they learning our technology so quickly?" he demanded. Trin, now arrested for suspected sympathy with humans, spoke from his cell. "They're not trying to understand it perfectly. They're just finding ways to make it work with what they know. It's what humans have always done. They take new ideas and mix them with old ones." The truth of these words became clear as Earth launched its first major counterattack. A fleet of 30 ships approached Jupiter, some Imperial vessels, some Earth ships, all modified with hybrid technology. Leading them was the newly renamed Star Warrior, formerly Marcus's flagship, now commanded by Thomas. "Look at their formation," one Imperial officer reported. "It's completely irregular. No proper fleet organization at all." But this irregular approach was exactly what made the human attack so effective. Imperial ships, trained to fight in perfect patterns, couldn't predict where the Earth fleet would move next. Some human ships used Imperial quantum weapons. Others used modified radio waves. Some simply rammed into Imperial ships' blind spots, their simple kinetic weapons proving devastating against enemies who only watched for energy attacks. Back on Earth, Wilson coordinated the overall strategy. Reports came in from across the solar system. More Imperial ships were surrendering. Many crew members, impressed by human adaptability, chose to defect. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're getting signals from other parts of the Empire. Other conquered species want to know how we're fighting back." Dr. Roberts looked up from her work on another captured ship. "We should share what we've learned. The Empire's greatest weakness is thinking there's only one right way to do things." The battle near Jupiter turned into a decisive victory. The human fleet's unpredictable tactics and hybrid technology overwhelmed the rigid Imperial formation. More ships were captured, adding to Earth's growing space force. Commander Marcus, watching from his remaining command ship, finally understood what was happening. "They're not just using our technology," he said quietly. "They're changing it, improving it. How can primitives do this?" The answer came as he watched a small Earth ship approach. It looked like it was made from parts of 3 different Imperial vessels, combined with what appeared to be an old radio telescope. By all Imperial engineering standards, it shouldn't work at all. But it moved with perfect precision, its hybrid weapons cutting through quantum shields like they didn't exist. Wilson's voice came over all Imperial channels. "Your Empire thought being advanced meant forgetting the past. Humanity knows better. We keep our old knowledge even as we learn new things. This is why we're winning. Not because we're stronger, but because we're willing to learn and adapt. As the battle ended, Earth's fleet regrouped, stronger than ever. In just 2 weeks, humanity had gone from a primitive species to one that could challenge the Empire. And they did it not by copying Imperial technology, but by making it better through combination with their own primitive solutions. The Empire was about to learn another lesson. Never underestimate a species that could turn its greatest weakness into its greatest strength. The Imperial Council chamber fell silent as they watched the battle recordings. 50 of the Empire's most powerful leaders sat around a massive quantum crystal table, their metallic faces reflecting the holographic displays of their recent defeats. "Impossible," the High Chancellor said, his silver eyes narrowing. "These primitives have destroyed or captured 1/3 of our fleet in just 3 weeks." The response was immediate. The Empire would send its main battle fleet, 5,000 ships, the largest force ever assembled. They would crush this human rebellion before other primitive worlds got similar ideas. On Earth, Admiral Wilson received the warning from their new allies among the Imperial defectors. "They're coming with everything they have," Trin reported, standing proudly in his new Earth defense uniform. 5,000 ships. Wilson looked at the holographic map showing the approaching Imperial armada. Earth had only 200 ships, even counting their captured and modified vessels. But numbers weren't everything. In her main laboratory, Dr. Roberts worked with a global team of scientists. They had discovered something interesting about Imperial quantum technology. "Look at this," she told Wilson, pointing to her latest experiment. "Their quantum systems are all connected. They're so proud of this perfect synchronization. But that means," she pressed a button, and the captured Imperial device on her desk shut down completely. Wilson smiled, understanding immediately. "If we can disrupt one, we can disrupt them all," she finished. They never considered that perfect connection could be a weakness. Thomas led the preparation of Earth's defense. Ships were hidden behind planets and moons. Old-style nuclear weapons were modified with quantum technology. Every radio telescope on Earth was converted into a weapon. Even the old satellite network was repurposed, each satellite now carrying a mix of primitive and advanced technology. The Imperial main fleet arrived at Neptune's orbit in perfect formation. 5,000 ships, each one identical, moved with precise coordination. Their new commander, High Admiral Rex, was determined to show these primitives the true power of the Empire. "Begin the advance," Rex ordered. "Show them what real Imperial power looks like." But Earth was ready. As the Imperial fleet moved past Neptune, they found themselves under attack from directions they never expected. Human ships popped out from behind moons and asteroids. Modified satellites launched hybrid weapons. Radio telescopes from Earth bombarded them with waves that disrupted their quantum shields. "They're not fighting properly," Rex shouted as another group of his ships lost power. "Where is their main fleet? Where is their organized response?" The answer came in the form of more chaos. Small groups of Earth ships would attack, then disappear. Single vessels would ram into Imperial ships, their primitive kinetic weapons proving devastating. Old-style nuclear weapons, combined with quantum technology, created explosions that rippled through the Imperial fleet's connected systems. Dr. Roberts' discovery proved crucial. Because all Imperial ships were connected through their quantum network, each successful human attack affected more than just its target. Disruptions spread through the entire fleet like a virus. "Disconnect from the quantum network," Rex ordered, but it was too late. His perfectly coordinated fleet was falling into chaos. Wilson watched from the command center as the massive Imperial fleet began to break apart. "They never learned," he said quietly. "They thought perfect coordination was always better than adaptability." The battle raged across the solar system. Earth lost ships too, but each loss was different, each crew adapting and fighting in their own way. The Imperial fleet, trying to maintain their perfect formation, found themselves unable to cope with the unpredictable attacks. By the time the battle reached Mars orbit, the Empire's massive fleet had lost its advantage. Their identical ships, identical tactics, and identical thinking had become their greatest weakness. "Send the message," Wilson ordered. Every Imperial ship received the same transmission. "Your fleet is divided. Your quantum network is failing. You can retreat now or face destruction. The choice is yours." As he watched the Imperial ships begin to turn away, Wilson remembered Marcus's first message about Earth being primitive. Now the Empire was learning that sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the most technology, but the one that remembers its past while embracing the future. The Imperial main fleet had come to crush Earth. Instead, they learned why humans had survived countless challenges throughout their history, because they never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never, ever gave up. 1 month after the Great Battle, representatives from Earth stood in the Imperial Council chamber. Admiral Wilson, Dr. Roberts, and Commander Thomas faced the Empire's leaders not as primitives, but as equals. The massive chamber's quantum crystal walls reflected their images, showing humans standing proud among the metallic-skinned Imperial leaders. The High Chancellor spoke first, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "In the Empire's 10,000 years, no species has ever defeated our main fleet. Yet you did it with fewer ships and supposedly inferior technology." "Not inferior," Dr. Roberts corrected politely. "Just different. We kept our old knowledge while learning new things. That's humanity's strength." The peace terms were simple. Earth and the entire solar system would remain independent. Humanity would share their hybrid technology with other worlds in the Empire, especially those labeled as primitive. In return, the Empire would share their advanced technology with Earth. But the biggest changes were already happening without any official agreements. Reports from 50 different worlds. "Sir," a young officer told Wilson during a break in the negotiations. "They're all combining their old technologies with Imperial systems, just like we did. The Empire can't stop it anymore." Thomas watched from a window as Imperial ships underwent modifications in Earth's orbit. Many now carried both quantum drives and simple backup systems. Some had even painted their hulls in different colors, breaking away from the Empire's perfect uniformity. "They're learning," Trin said, standing beside Thomas. "For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire is learning to adapt." Back on Earth, humanity was changing too. Dr. Roberts led a new global science institute where scientists combined Earth's primitive technology with advanced Imperial systems. The results amazed both humans and Imperial engineers. "Look at this," she told Wilson, showing him a new ship design. "It uses quantum power but can switch to old chemical rockets if needed. It has both Imperial AI and simple manual controls. It's not perfect like Imperial ships, but it's more reliable." The Empire itself faced a peaceful revolution. Other species, inspired by Earth's victory, began rediscovering their own ancient technologies. They found new ways to combine their traditional knowledge with Imperial advancements. A year after the war, Wilson stood on the moon's surface, watching Earth rise over the horizon. Behind him, a new type of city was being built, one that used both quantum power and simple solar panels, Imperial gravity technology, and basic airlocks. "We got a new message from the Imperial Council," Dr. Roberts said, walking up beside him in her spacesuit. "They're changing their first contact protocols. No more calling species primitive, just because they do things differently." Thomas joined them, pointing to a new ship landing nearby. Its design was neither fully Earth nor fully Imperial, but a perfect blend of both. "The Empire wanted to make everything the same," he said. Instead, they learned that different isn't always worse. Back in Geneva, the Global Defense Center had changed. Imperial officers trained alongside human soldiers, learning about Earth's history of adaptation and survival. Humans studied Imperial technology, not to copy it, but to understand and improve it. "You know what the best part is?" Wilson asked during the first anniversary celebration of the victory. "We didn't just protect Earth. We helped the Empire become better too. Dr. Roberts raised her glass. To humanity's greatest discovery, that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from. The final peace treaty was signed on Mars, in a ceremony that combined imperial grandeur with human simplicity. As Wilson signed the document, he remembered the Empire's first message about uplifting primitive worlds. "We all had something to learn," he said to the assembled delegates. "The Empire learned that newer isn't always better. Humanity learned that we can embrace new ideas without losing our old ones. And together, we learned that true strength comes from adapting and growing, not from staying the same." As the ceremony ended, ships from Earth and the Empire flew together above Mars. Some were pure Imperial design, some were human-made, and many were new hybrid vessels. They flew in no particular formation, each choosing its own path while working together, just like the civilizations they represented. The Galactic Empire's first war had ended, but humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning.